Okay, let me add Nava. Hi everyone. Almost Shabbat. Almost Shabbat already in Israel, actually. Um, Happy Friday. Thanks for joining. As you know, some of you know me. My name is Ophir Gutelzon. I'm co-founder of UnXeptable. I'm based in Palo Alto, in the West Coast. And today I'll host Nava Rozolyo, which was a short notice based on what we know about the parade of a lot of people that are coming from the government and the coalition. And we'll talk more about that. Just a couple of words about UnXeptable. So we are a grassroots movement for saving Israeli democracy. We're actually going to have our 5th anniversary soon in July, since the Balfour protest started. And we are working to make sure that even in the year of 2048 and beyond, Israel will stay democracy, Jewish liberal democracy. And today, I have really an honor to host Nava, which we have known each other for, I don't know, probably since the beginning of the judicial overhaul. And I think not before. And many of you know Nava from her posts and from her activity in Israel. And if you haven't got the email that I shared, the Haaretz profile that Haaretz did on Nava, but we are going to get a deep dive to this discussion here as well. So Nava, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for hosting this and
Yes.
for everything that all of you do
Yeah,
for
it's
Israel.
it's a big group of a lot of passionate people for Israel, love Israel, and believe that Israel needs to be Jewish liberal democracy and to be saved from Netanyahu and his right-wing government, extreme right-wing government. And we have many faces here that we know. Some of us we don't. This will be recorded, and we are going to, and I'm going to take questions towards the end and ask. So please send them on the chat. Nava, I want to start just to ask you, how are you doing in the end of this week? This was another crazy week. Tell us where you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself or what people doesn't know about you.
Well, a little bit about today. We're all here in Israel. I think most of us are extremely worried about our country, not just about the hostages, but also for national security, democracy, for our future here. We see Netanyahu's have taken over our beloved country, and he's doing anything in his power just to escape his own trial, to escape the criminal charges against him, which means he basically sold our country, our democracy, our national security to his extreme partners, coalition partners, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. And that's why the hostages are not released yet. And that's why we're still in this endless war. And that's why, as I see it, Israel is not a democracy anymore, or maybe electoral democracy,
Yeah,
not a liberal democracy.
it's
Uh,
it's true. I mean, like again, we are seeing the degradation. Again, we see it also here in the U.S. I mean, it's democracies are on attack right now everywhere.
yeah.
Um, And you mentioned the hostages. So again, just to be to be clear, I mean, like we are at that point. I mean, as far as I understand right now, there is a team in Doha of Netanyahu's team that are trying to make sure there is not going to be a deal for releasing all the hostages, but some kind of like a deal to return some of the hostages so the war can continue. And as we speak, I mean, there is 17 or 15 coalition members and ministers, instead of staying in Israel and doing everything in their power to force Netanyahu to sign the deal, they are traveling to the US to do whatever they do. And one of the reasons why they're going to the US is because they think that the Shame Patrol will not follow them. And that's what we're going to talk about. Nava, when one of
Yeah.
your name was raised very early, I mean, in the judicial overall, when I think that the first time I heard about you was outside of Sarah's Netanyahu haircut situation.
Great.
When we were, I mean, tell us more about that and how did it all started?
Well, during the big rallies around the country, around Israel, against that judicial coup, um, I was in Tel Aviv at this evening on my way to a protest somewhere in Tel Aviv. And I received an information in one of the WhatsApp groups that Benjamin Netanyahu, is having his hair done in a barber shop in Tel Aviv. I thought it was him. I didn't know he was with his wife, Sarah Netanyahu. So I just move on with my bike. It was 2 minutes from where I was, and I saw a lot of bodyguards, his special police forces, and I knew he was there. So I understood that the information was correct. So I just took out my megaphone, my loudspeaker, and I started to yell at him from the bottom of my heart. I think in the name of a lot of people in Israel, you've destroyed this country, you've destroyed our democracy, you've destroyed the society. It was before October 7th. It was, I think, more than 2 years ago. And the first thing I saw when I looked back, I think a few minutes after I just screamed and shout, is thousands of people behind me, and it became one of the biggest protests in Tel Aviv. It was a spontaneous protest, and apparently Sarah Netanyahu was there. I think she was the only one there. He wasn't there. Benjamin Netanyahu wasn't there, and she told her favorite horns in channel 14, it's Netanyahu's propaganda channel, that her life was in danger, she was threatened, she couldn't go out. She told everyone that the protesters were violent and she couldn't leave the place. And that's when the shame brigade, sorry, was basically first became a movement, became a protest movement, because the idea is that, of course, it was non-violent, of course, it was completely according to law, of course, she was free to leave the barber shop at any time. We don't believe her lies, but of course, that's the story she wants to tell. That's fine. I'm not a big professional in people that are feeling haunted or threatened. Of course, it was nonviolent. Anyway, at that day, the shame patrols became a movement, a protest movement, where when we know about one of Netanyahu's coalition members or collaborators or any of his assistants in the judicial coup attempt, when we know that they're in the public field, in the public area, we can just go to them and say to their face, in their ears, we apply direct public pressure in front of them, so they would hear and see the public. They will hear the public criticism. And I have to stress again, it's nonviolent, it's completely under the law, but it's very effective because they can't hide from the public. They can run, they can hide in the Knesset or in their homes. They have to know that they have, along with the power, they have accountability for the public, and they must hear the public. And
Yeah.
also in the US, when they arrive to the US or anywhere in the world, anywhere in Israel, anywhere they are in the public area, they will meet the public, they will see the public, they will hear the public. And I know from their assistants, their teams, their friends, that they hate it. They just don't want to see the public. They want to hide in the parliament house. They want to hide in their homes and avoid the public. So
And
we must confront them with their actions.
And just to give you a sense, again, many of you are aware of what's happening in Israel. I mean, we'll talk soon about how things changed after October 7. But just the latest poll from tonight, I mean, we still see that basically this coalition has only was in when they are now in power with 68 seats in the Knesset, and in every poll since October 7 and even before, they only have like about 44 seats. So they don't really have legitimacy from the public. And therefore, again, I mean, that's why they don't want to see the public. Nava, I want to ask you about this. I mean, how things have changed since October 7, because in a way, until October 7, the main message was you're taking our democracy. And since October 7, again, a lot of protest movement or protest groups has changed their way of like not protesting, or at the beginning, now everyone is back on the streets. How did you switch what you're doing, and how did the message change in a way?
I think I don't represent, if, at least at the first few months after October 7th, I was more brave, and I didn't necessarily represented the most of the Israeli public, because from the very first moment, I said Netanyahu is the one to blame. Netanyahu won't release the hostages. Netanyahu will just drag the war, and he must be replaced immediately. And I think that was pretty much not conventional, because at that point, right after October 7th, most of the people in Israel, even within the protest movement, said it's not time to talk about politics. Netanyahu is not, it's not, now is not the time to demand the replacement of Netanyahu, or to bring about elections immediately, because now we're dealing with hostages crisis and war. But I think as time go by, more and more people, I think now it's the vast majority of the Israeli people, demand not only end the war and bring back all hostages, but also replace Netanyahu's government, because most of the Israeli people know that the reason is the hostages are not back yet is Netanyahu and his political, personal, and criminal interests. So at this point, we demand everything at the same breath. Replace Netanyahu's government, end the war, bring back all hostages. And when we replace this crazy government, irresponsible government, then we replace them with a more responsible and Zionist leadership. Netanyahu's government are not Zionist, because they don't serve the interest of the Israeli people, of the national security and democracy, which are our basic values.
So I mean, we recently had a statement by the head of Shin Bet that basically talked about the demand that Prime Minister Netanyahu had from him to actually follow other protest movement leaders. I mean, some of you know that I got a call from one of the Shin Bet people, even though I'm like on the West Coast, not even in Israel.
Which means you're doing something right. Otherwise, I can't explain why Netanyahu would like to stalk you and know what you know in order to למנוע ממך, to prevent you from using that information, even though it's completely, you're right, you're liberal democracy, right?
Did it have any personal impact on you? Like, did you actually feel this? I mean, now that you know from the Shin Bet, from the head of Shin Bet, that Netanyahu was asking, can you, in retrospect, see any impact? Did you have any personal impact on that? From that?
No, personally, it's not new. I knew that Netanyahu's people don't want me to know where they are, don't want me to share with the public, not just where Netanyahu is where Netanyahu is located in and his coalition members are located in, they don't want protest against the government, very similar to other dictators we know around the world, such as Putin or Orban, which are trying to prevent the protest against them. So personally, it's not new to me and it didn't stop me in any way, but it did made me worried about our democracy, because if the prime minister is demanding the head of Shin Bet to use his power just to prevent protests, which are completely lawful and nonviolent, that's just, it's not only electoral democracy, it's not a democracy anymore at all. But personally, it didn't intimidate me or anything. It just, maybe it even got me more determined to fight our democracy, because we know how much the danger, Netanyahu is a danger to Israel.
So I want to share one of the recent street in a way protests we all gathered in Manhattan when Ben Gvir came and basically made sure that he's not being welcomed. We call it Ben Gvir is beyond the pale, and I want to share with you all a video of again how fast the rumors are coming out from one place to another and being posted. Let me share one of those videos and hold on. I think we have one from Florida, right? Which is again in New York, it was easy. In Florida, it was definitely something too interesting. So let's do that. Share screen with sound. Can you see my screen? Okay, now you can see my screen.
הנה.
So this is just a person walking into the streets into bed.
ככה זה, יש אנשים שנלחמים בישראל ויש את המשתמטים והבנים של המשתמטים. אתה לא יכול לגעת בי פה.
Well, apparently, if you go on Nava's feed, you will see many of those videos. And I early recommend you to do that. I mean,
This is from today. This is Idit Silman.
Okay, tell us more about Idit Silman and why we are protesting her.
Well, she's one of Netanyahu's collaborators. She has the power to disassemble, to break apart Netanyahu's government, and she's not doing so. Netanyahu's government, most of the Israeli people know that Netanyahu's government is a danger to Israel. They're sabotaging the hostage deal. They're sabotaging the national security. If she's loyal to her boss, Netanyahu, and not to Israel, then we are applying direct public pressure on her.
And just to clarify, Idit Silman, for those of you who doesn't know, she broke the previous government over a law that would demand people to check for chametz, for bread during Passover.
That was Bennett and Lapid, Naftali Bennett
and
the
previous government. That was what I was saying. Like she broke, so she's not breaking the government for the hostages at the end of the war, but she was okay with breaking it. So this is, I think, the pressure that we want to talk about. So let's move to New York. So today's Friday. On Sunday there will be the Israel Day on the 5th, where many of our people as well as others will walk those parades. This is a parade not for the government. It's a parade to support Israel. Hopefully, the coalition members that came over to the city will not be walking that. But other than that, we have, and we can probably put in the picture, we have, I think, like 15 coalition members that will be during the weekend in New York, Again, the highest minister, I think it's going to be Barkat, I think, Neil Barkat.
Also, Miki Zohar is one of
And
the
Miki
ministers.
Zohar, which is one of the
and
ministers, and of course
Yitzhak
Rothman.
Wasserlau.
Yeah, I mean, and there will be during two conferences. One is the right-wing settlers conference called the Jerusalem Conference, and the other one is the Jerusalem Post Conference.
Yeah.
But what I want to talk to you about, Nava, is let's talk about tactics, and messaging. So in case we are aware, and again, if you follow Nava's and UnXeptable feed, once we get any information, we will share it as soon as we can. If you know any information about those who are walking the streets, hotels, events, let us know. But once we know that and people are seeing them, I mean, based on today, and it's important to say again, I mean, after October 7, the streets of Manhattan is not going to be streets that are empty from protesters who are not necessarily supporters of Israel. There is pro-Hamas people and others. But when we meet them as liberal Zionists, right, as people who love Israel, and it's clear that we are Israelis who love Israel, how do you suggest approaching them?
So when you face the ministers, whether it's on the street or in the hotels that they stay in, or in conventions or in the parade, when you face them, I suggest that you should be strict but serious, yet polite. We don't want to attack them. We don't want to make the impression that we attack them. We want the environment to know that we represent Israel. We represent the good of Israel, and they are not. They don't represent Israel. We demand them to resign or do the right thing for Israel. Release all hostages, end the war, do it for Israel. It should be strict yet polite, and of course non-violent. And I suggest that if it's possible, you should be at least two people. So one of them would video the meeting, and the power of this protest, this kind of protest, is it's after that it goes viral. Because if you didn't, if it wasn't documented, then it never happened. The last thing that they want is that it will go viral. And that's why it's important to speak in English, because if you speak in Hebrew, then people around would think that you just yell at them. Another thing I suggest is don't curse, because that won't convey any message, not to them and not to their followers. I call not a lot of people in Israel support the government, but those persons that do support the government, they're brainwashed. So I call them supporters. I want their followers to know as well that their representatives in the Knesset or in the government are harming Israel, are harming the democracy and the national security. That's why I suggest you speak about how important is it to support our IDF and support him to do the moral and right thing, and to end the atrocities that some of the atrocities that Israel is doing in Gaza. I think I speak for the most of this crowd here. We support ending the war and bringing back all hostages, and of course bringing Israel to be liberal democracy again. So you need to be very strict and clear, but again polite and non-violent, and to document, to video everything, because even if you were two people, after that, when we posted it, I think thousands of people, or even more, will see this thing, and the message will go on to the world.
Yeah, and I think that I would add that also most of us over here understand the atrocities that are happening in Gaza, and the innocent lives that are being taken, and that's basically the important reasons why we both want to end the war for returning all the hostages, as well as ending the political war that Netanyahu is now running in Gaza and his government. I want to try and take you to the point where and I will add a little bit more about laws maybe in New York City and others. Again, I mean, like, so the First Amendment for us is something that is clearly not shouldn't be taken as for granted, because it could change. But I mean, like, we have the rights to talk. I mean, the police is usually enabling us to talk. I mean, to basically have our statement. So, I mean, again, I mean, in Israel, the police is now run by Ben Gvir, and we can definitely talk about the police violence that we have in Israel. But in New York, as far as we had experience, stay in a distance. I mean, talk to the ministers and the MKs, and don't be afraid of documenting it. It's our right. And until now, as far as I know, we live still in democracy, even in the US.
And we can be polite. It needs to be relevant and very strict and serious, but it's completely lawful. It's non-violent. We just want them to hear what the public in Israel or Zionist people around the world think and demand him to do.
Yeah, and what they usually being very I mean, I would say taking to their heart is that they all go with the bring them home pin, right? I mean, even though they have the power to bring them home, which we don't, we have only the voice to ask, but they have the power, right? When you talk about the pin and say, like, why are you wearing the pin? What's the point? And if you remember, even the father of Josh Paulin, the father of Hirsch.
Josh Paulin, the father of Hirsch Goldberg Paulin.
Of Hirsch Goldberg Paulin, right? He said, like, well, it's like walking, it's like being the McDonald's CEO, right? And advocating for being a vegetarian or vegan. So again, I mean, like, this is important. I mean, they have the power, and we need to make sure that we show them that we are speaking again for the hostage families, for the hostages, and for ending the war. They are not expecting it in the US. In the US, again, they usually being welcomed as a member of the Knesset of Israel, and they get the respect. So they don't really expect that on the street, and that really bothers them.
Well, I must share something pretty, I don't know if it's funny or reflects everything that is so crazy here in Israel. I got a call from one of the coalition members, one of the government members that was supposed to participate in one of the conventions. I don't remember if that's the Jerusalem Post Convention or Besheva. And a team member of that minister told me that she wasn't going to participate, and she even demanded that I will delete the posts calling people to arrive, because they just don't want people to protest in their face or where they're staying at. Of course, he can threaten me to delete a post. It's still the Twitter is still free. They haven't shut down the internet yet, even though they're planning to do so. That's one of the crazy bills. Sorry, one of the bills that they plan to pass. Anyway, she demanded me to delete my post, and she said it doesn't go this way. I don't know what she means, but I think she just didn't want people to know that she's going to speak in that convention or be at the area. So they are afraid of seeing protesters or hearing criticism in Israel or abroad.
Yeah.
I won't say her name, but her name is still on the website as one of the speakers. So
Yeah,
I don't know if her assistant, her team members lied, but she demanded me to delete the post.
And that's totally fine. I mean, like, again, I mean, like, not just on the streets. I mean, like, you have their emails, you have their, I mean, I will actually share one of the things that we prepared. We have like a list of WhatsApp, of those Knesset members and people who are coming or not coming. You can always WhatsApp them, like we do here in the US, writing letters to Congress. and write to those who are hosting them that this is unacceptable, that they are being here while they can release the hostages and end the war and make the pressure. So
And
normalizing
that can be very effective. I remember one of Amichai Shikli's visits to, where was it? I think Germany, one of a convention in Europe. We demanded the hostess not to host him in a certain event because I think it was something to the Holocaust
it was
Memorial
a
Day.
Holocaust memorial for 80 years,
Yeah.
and the hostage
We
family
demanded not to host him, and eventually Shikli announced that he has some security excuse that he was prevented to participate in that convention, which means basically that the public pressure worked and they asked him politely not to join the convention. So he just made up some excuse about why he's prevented from security reasons to participate. So if you know that they're going to be hosted in certain lecture or assemble or whatever, you can just write the organizers and ask not to host them because these people hurt Israel, hurt our attempts to release the hostages. They sabotaged the national security and the Israeli democracy. I think most of the leaders around the world in the free world will understand the Israeli people or Israeli friends around the world.
And I want to add again, I mean, one of the things that we have saw recently, I mean, last week, I mean, like how basically this government is being left behind the national security priority. I think that the reporter, the journalist Tom Friedman, and we share this voice. I mean, said like, well, Netanyahu preferred peace with Smotrich and Ben Gvir over peace with Saudi and those other members of the moderate people. And again, I mean, we don't know what will happen with those Trump meetings. But one thing that some of you are not really aware of, I think, is, or maybe you are, about something we call Qatargate in Israel, right? And the Qatargate in Israel means that Netanyahu hasn't fired yet his closest aide who got just a second, who got funding from Qatar, and I mean, I just can't imagine that President Trump was sitting and talked about how Amir Qatar is like the best friend of Iran, right? And those are all connected. These are all struggles that are connected. Again, we have our own issues about Qatar here in the US and all the other corruption that might be here, but let's focus about Israel. And you should also mention that Nir Barkat was interviewed by MSNBC and was so ashamed. I mean, he was like, have this interview where
That was an epic interview.
epic
He
interview.
was
So
asked,
remind those things to them. Remind them when you meet them, remind them those failures and remind them that they are part of this destruction government. That's the best thing you can do in the time that they are there. And again, as Nava said, politely, respectfully, in the sense that you will be, I mean, they will not be able to use that for their own base.
you should embarrass them with the things that they don't want people to know, such as one of my friends told Simcha Rothman yesterday when he landed JFK. How can you support a government that funded Hamas, that transferred money from Qatar in it wasn't even a wire transfer, it was in suitcases of dollars. Just gave money to Hamas to build the terror tunnels and to prepare themselves to October 7th. That's your government, and that's what they don't want their base to know. So you should embarrass them with the things that they hide from their base or lie about. For example, Simcha Rothman, we know that he used to have meetings with Qatar lobbyist people, such as I won't mention names, but he met a lot of Qatar lobbyists in the US. So just ask them, do you plan to meet another Qatari agents now when you visit the US? Or why did you support Jonathan Ulrich, which is one of the main people that are investigated in the Qatar the Qatar case?
Yeah. I mean, those are all, by the way, there is a great, I'll share more links about that. I mean, you can read more about it. I put it on the chat, the links to both conferences. So again, if you want, and you can still get tickets, you can go into those events and speak directly to them or outside. Nava, I want to take another minute before I'm taking questions from the audience. I mean, other than the shame brigade, you are posting a lot of content on social media. You have a team of people that is kind of like, I mean, sometimes we in UnXeptable are translating stuff that you posted, and sometimes we translate stuff from others. But it sounds like you're also doing the work to make sure that more Israelis in Israel are exposed to content that sometimes it's just falling between the cracks between one reality show to another reality show. By the way, I was shocked that there is a reality show called The Traitors in Israel right now, which is
Why do you need a reality show when you have it in Netanyahu's government?
exactly. So tell us a little bit more about this activity, and I will also I know that this is an important effort, and I know that you're also having a fundraiser for that, which I will post the link on the chat and on the email later. But tell us more about the other activities that you're doing to get more Israelis active, getting off the couch, and coming to doing everything they can to to get the hostages back and take down the government.
So fighting this dangerous government is not only the shame patrols, and it's not only protests in the streets. Of course, that's very important. For example, tomorrow, as every Saturday night in Israel, we have rallies across Israel, mainly on, now it's Habima Square, and after that, Shar Begin on Begin Street. In Jerusalem, of course, still we have a large protest in front of Netanyahu's official residence in Gaza Street. That's ironic. He lives in Gaza Street, in Haifa, across Israel. So every Saturday I go to mainly Tel Aviv, mainly Bima and Shar Begin, but it can be other places around Israel. And of course, I post videos, and so people would know, because the traditional media doesn't cover that enough. That's our job, that's our liability to make people know. And when reporters follow me, I think more people know. And that's important that you around the world, at the US, or if we have other people from other countries here, share what's going on in Israel, because the traditional media in Israel doesn't cover that enough. And if they do, they have this weird symmetry between supporters of the government and objectors of the government. So it's like a nice dispute. We have pluralism between sacrificing the hostages and demanding to replace them, like it's equal voices in Israel. Of course, it's not. Of course, you can't. You can't لأذن. How do you say?
You can't balance.
You can't balance right with wrong or truth with lies. So we need to make our truth and our values to shout out, and the social networks is one of the main platforms that we do that. But apart from rallies and protests and shame patrols, I personally is visiting at least once a week or maybe twice a week at the Israeli Knesset, at committees of mainly ועדת החוקה, mainly
the law committee,
yeah,
which Rotman
of
is
Simcha
head.
Rotman, and fighting very extreme and very dangerous law initiatives that they're trying to pass. Almost similar to our opposition members, because since our opposition members doesn't have the majority in the Knesset, they can't really reject to these very dangerous bills. So they let their voice heard, and also us, the public, can let our voice be heard in these committees. So I'm there to posting to let the people, the Israeli public, know what's going on in there. And sometimes I speak and I object, and I think that's one of the where the objection to the government is taking place, not only the streets and the social networks, but also the Knesset. And if you're in Israel, oh, I see my friend Ariel here. He's one of the very determined citizens that are participating in debates in the Knesset, and he's videotaping it, and we use it to embarrass or to criticize the coalition members, and that's super important.
Yeah, it's
So
important.
if you can, just join us.
Yeah, I mean that's actually a great idea. I mean, people are going to travel if the Houthis will let us know travel to Israel over the summer, and that could be a good partnership to get not just to volunteer, which is super important on the Gaza border to recover those kibbutzim, but you can also volunteer to come to the Knesset, and the voice of Jewish Americans and Jewish diaspora in general and Israel American should be heard, as this is the state of all the Jewish people. Nava, I'm going to take a couple of questions from the audience that is being repeated. I mean, and one of them is, do we have? I think we covered a little bit of that. This was coming from Yael, which is one of the leaders in our DC branch chapter. And the question is like really about what is effective, right? I mean, and you were mentioning not cursing and being respectful. And I would try to elaborate. Maybe you can try to elaborate about. I mean, if you meet someone like Nir Barkat, I mean, is it going to be different message to him comparing to Rotman, or do you think that this is kind of like that we should all bucket them in the same place as the destruction government, the one that doesn't return the hostages, the one that gave money took money from Qatar and gave it to Hamas? How do you differentiate, or do you have any other ideas?
So I think specifically with Nir Barkat, I have no information on where he's staying, at which hotel he's staying, but if you see him on the street or maybe even in the parade, you should confront him with his, as I said, I would confront him with his voting, with his shameful votings in the Knesset, such as voting against the hostage deal or supporting Netanyahu's policy that the Haredi people, that the extreme ultra religious people won't serve the army, because otherwise the Shas and Yadut Torah would break up Netanyahu's government. But you're supposed to be Zionist. How can you support not serving the army? So confront him with his voting, with his shameful voting, and don't curse, don't use language that would dishonor you, because we want to be relevant. We want to just make him ashamed on his votings.
Yeah.
And
And
also supporting transferring money to Hamas, or supporting the Netanyahu's partners that worked for Qatar. How are you not demanding to investigate that? Just confront him with the things that he should be ashamed in, and not only just shout shame, 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 because that would mean nothing to him or his supporters.
And and again, I mean, like I would add a couple of things, and it's also a question that someone asked us about the UK, but it's true also in Israel, in North America as well. I mean, take it also personally on your own. I mean, like what's happening in Israel, right? And the idea that you're not ending the war is also impacting us here. It's
And
not just in,
is also the economy minister. So you should mention that you're ruining the Israeli high tech. You're ruining Israeli democracy. We have a lot of indicates that you're truly sabotaging the Israeli economy. You're supposed to know things, one thing or two about the Israeli economy, and you know that you're destroying the economy. So you can be relevant even in his own field of responsibility. Sorry.
now, one other thing is there is always, and I mentioned it. I mean, like people are saying that every time you protest against the war, it almost sounds like you are pro-Hamas, or people will define them as pro-Palestinian. And my answer to that, to whoever asked that, is that again, if you are protesting with the flag of Israel in your hand, no one can tell you that you are not you don't love Israel. So that's one differentiation that is super, super important. Obviously, again, I mean, like T-shirts that are claiming that, but even if you're not, I mean, like, don't be afraid to say what you think, and that's true anyway. Again, I mean, we are making sure that our messages on the streets are clearly supporting the Israelis. We are kind of like telling that we are not our government, right? And we are focusing on that.
We're not our government. That's a great sign because that tells everyone the whole story. People don't necessarily know the complexity in Israel, that we're not our government, that the government ministers and coalition representatives don't represent the Israeli public or the good of Israel. So when you have a sign says we're not our government, or save Israel from Netanyahu, or bring back all hostages, or we love Israel and the war, something that would stress out that we support Israel, but we want to end the war for Israel and for the hostages and for our national security. It doesn't mean that we support Hamas. So if you can think about a sign or a T-shirt or a statement that says, we love Israel, bring back all hostages and the war, or save Israel from Netanyahu, that's a great something to say, even to the people around that hear you.
Yeah, and again, speaking about other tools, just a friend of mine, Tamar, just remind us again. We can write more letters, we can write more op-eds, we can do more things that are not just on the streets.
And that's why we need your help around the world. That's something that you can totally do from the US, from your own home. Just write to everyone that you can, to the leaders around the world, to diplomatic, to reporters, to help us fight our government in order to save Israel.
Yeah. So last question before we're summarizing everything and going to our Shabbat deals. There is a statement that people are keep telling about the idea that being pro-Israel is only standing and supporting whatever the government is doing. I would want us just to clarify, Nava, about that part where how Israelis that are part of the protest movement and those who are not see or react to actions that are being taken in the US or any other place when they see those protests coming from abroad. I mean, like, do they feel proud? Do they have other reaction to that? What is the reaction of the people in Israel? Do they think it's helpful when they see other Israelis or Jewish Americans or Jewish in general supporting them from abroad?
That's heartwarming. That's what that gives us hope, because we here in Israel can fight along our government. And I think a lot of our hopes, unfortunately, is that other forces, other good forces around the world would save Israel. Maybe that would be, again, unfortunately, President Trump to be the responsible grown-up to Israel and would force the end of the war and bringing back all hostages. And I think you can pressure him, you can pressure leaders around the world or diplomats or reporters to put more stress on Netanyahu and his collaborators to just stop the madness. And maybe if it would be forced on Netanyahu's government just to reach to a permanent regional agreement and bringing back all hostages, maybe that's our hope. And we alone cannot force that on Netanyahu because the protest here in Israel is important, but that won't dissemble the government. That's important to strengthen the head of the legal systems and officials in Israel and the head of the Shin Bet and everyone that needs to...
What we call the gatekeepers.
The gatekeepers,
The
exactly.
gatekeepers who are kind of like...
They should know that the people of Israel are behind them and need them to be strong. But that won't stop the war and won't bring back the hostages and won't bring new elections soon.
Yeah.
What can end the war is you. That you can call the leaders around the world or even the people that host Netanyahu's government members and just tell them they don't represent Israel. If you want to hear someone, hear us, not Shikli or Rotman or Nir Barkat.
Okay. Nava, thank you.
And that seriously gives us a lot of hope and power. So everything that you can do to help save Israel from your own home in the US, wherever you are, that's really important to us and to the future of Israel.
Nava, thank you so much for everything that you are doing and for spending the Friday night with us from Israel. And I want to say
my pleasure and honor.
Thank you to Ziv as well that was able to set it all up and on a short time. And to you in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, DC, East Coast. I know some of you are also organizing maybe something in on the other cities. I mean, just stay strong and remember that it's a long fight, and we are not going to held back just because people think about us that we are not for Israel. We are patriotics, we love Israel, and you should all be very proud of everything that you're doing. Nava, thank you so much. And I'll share the recording, and I'll also remind you that there is a recording of Eran Halperin from this week on the YouTube, which is super important, specifically on those days. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ophir and everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.